This podcast contains some magical adult language. Listener discretion is advised. And sorry, Mom.
I'm going to Disney World. I'm going to...
Whoa. You're not Mickey Mouse, you're a rat.
Rat smack! Besides, they're tourists. What do they know?
Welcome to Rat Castle, a progressive chat about Disney magic without the pixie dust. I'm Nathan Hartman, and today is a special kind of episode we're calling Rat Chats. These are smaller one-on-one or two-on-one, depending, conversations with different people in the theme park community. Less panel, more sort of smaller chat situation. And today we are joined, of course, by Dave, who was unable to join us for our D23 episodes. Hello, Dave.
Howdy, y'all.
It's good to have you. It's good.
Good to be back.
Lucky you get to think through everything. We just sort of spitballed all of our initial reactions and lots of exhausted disappointment. And we'll talk more about that. But with us today, a very special guest, a writer and associate editor for cinemablend.com, who focuses on that theme park beat. You know him, you love him on Disc Twitter. It's Dirk Libbey. Hello, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so let's just, I'm just going to I've spitballed all my opinions out and said everything on the last podcast, so I'm going to let you guys sort of lead. But my first thought for the both of you is, let's just talk about D23 overall. Was it a successful convention for Disney, or was it a lackluster sort of celebration?
I suppose the answer to that depends on kind of what angle you want to take. From a PR perspective, which is certainly one perspective you can't ignore. I think it was very successful. I mean, the Disney name was everywhere for a weekend, and all the Marvel, all the Star Wars, all the whatever you were into, even if you're only into it a little bit, you got your fix, whether you were in the building or not. And I think from that perspective, I think it worked out pretty well. For the fans, and I think that really gets variable, because every fan is looking for something a little bit different. So some people, I'm sure, walked away very happy with what they saw and heard, and others definitely not so much.
Yeah, I feel like the fan that was watching stuff and Twitter from home is probably the worst off. We didn't get any merch from home. We didn't get to see the things live that we wanted to see. But we got, it's like, at least you can leave the convention and be like, I got a cool thing, like at the very least. But here it's like, well, they got to see stuff I didn't get to see and that sort of stuff. But for me,
the thing to remember for me is I always have to remind myself, oh, right, this was created because they didn't want to deal with Comic-Con anymore. And they wanted to control every message they had, right?
So they went to Comic-Con.
Right. Anyone expecting any of this to be in any way, shape, or form editorial for the public is sorely mistaken. This is their advertising dollars being spent by them for them with the most targeted, precise messaging they can come up with. And whether or not you like that messaging, they really don't care, to be honest. That's why they created this platform. It's why it's why I went the first year and went, got it. I know what this is. I never have to go back. And even this weekend, I didn't follow it every step of the way. I waited till everything was done and then just watched all the recap videos on YouTube, because that's all I needed to see. Although, even though I was home, I did get some merch because my minions got the Tron stuff that I wanted for me. Thank you for you listeners out there who helped me out. But I don't know. Is it a success? I don't know. When is advertising successful or not? Did it reach its audience? Then great, it's a success. Are you happy with it? Am I happy with it? No, I don't think. I've kind of left any expectation for that by the wayside a long time ago. And there were some things that maybe perk up. I loved seeing the whole costume and Mando. That was kind of fun. Like, it's a nothing burger in terms of an announcement. We knew they were going to do it eventually. But it's really hard to parse out as a success or not when I know that what its purpose is, and that's not to get you excited about things. It really isn't, to be honest.
Let's turn our attention just a little bit before we dive into some of the panels and things like that. I want to talk about Bob Chapek, and I just want to talk about him as in the new bearded, sweatered, doing New York Times interviews, convivial Uncle Bob.
It was so calculated to make him Uncle Bob. Like the beard, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, really? Are we doing this now? Is there going to be a fireside chat next? Oh, Lord, it was so calculated.
Dirk, thoughts?
I thought it was much more Obadiah Stane than Uncle Bob. That was my first thought when I saw him, and hey, it's, Bob Chapek is who Bob Chapek is,
Right.
and as somebody who in a previous career, like I was in sales, and like I was not, I was in sales and I was very good at selling the product. I was not the best salesman when it came to like being your buddy, the way a lot of salesmen really like that's their thing.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate Bob Chapek because that's who Bob Chapek is.
Sure.
Like Bob Chapek is not your buddy, and he's not very good at being that sort of CEO. He's the numbers guy. He's the guy who's going to make all the numbers go up.
Yeah.
Until the end of the universe. And he's good, and I think he's probably pretty good at that part of it. He's not good so much at the other part. His job requires him to still do the other part, and so he's doing the best that he can with it. Any issues I have with Bob Chapek's decisions are independent of what I think of him as a person.
Sure.
Because like you can tell he's trying to figure out how to do this part of the job.
Yeah.
Because it's the part he's not comfortable with.
Yeah.
And
the part that his predecessor excelled at. Right.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So he's gotta compete with that because he's not comfortable with this part of the job. And he may never be. Like maybe he'll get there, practice makes perfect. Maybe he will eventually become more comfortable in that space. But he might never do that.
Yeah.
We might spend the next 5 years watching sort of the evolution of Bob Chapek's public persona.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like the best analogy I can think of for him is he is as if Roy had been the lead and Walt had been the side guy. At the beginning, like it's not necessarily like what he's doing is his thought process is bad, but it's sort of not what Disney is known for. It's and that of course brings up Josh D'Amaro, who's going around making memes for TikTok and like auditioning so hard for the big man's job. I think even when you watch that theme park panel, you just kind of go, damn, like D'Amaro, as much as he was, if anything, I came out of the theme park panel, I came out going, for telling me almost nothing, you were very good at it. Like, I think, it's interesting seeing him decide at a larger scale at events like that, how he wants to represent himself too. And that dichotomy is so distinct. You kind of want Josh and Bob to like just share whatever that is, because you can feel that.
Right. I mean, in a way, the only sort of the biggest comfort I took away from the very little I saw of Chapek stuff as well, at least he's saying the quiet parts out loud now, right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
The whole, Denver family once every 5 years thing is like, well, there it is. That it or not, at least he's saying it,
Yeah.
But
That Denver
you,
family, of course, spending more money than I as an annual pass holder, which is the point.
Which is the point, right?
Trying to make it. It's also a lie. There's no space for them, but we can get into that at some point as well.
Right.
So let's just hit the film and TV panels. We'll just mush everything together from day one and day two. Was there anything that stood out to you? Any exciting announcements that you both were interested in? Dirk, what do you think?
I not necessarily. I thought everything that they talked about was fine, and I only saw the stuff that they released publicly, so
Sure.
There may have been some interesting stuff that the folks in the room got to see. But honestly, I'm like now I'm trying to think like what did they announce that we didn't already know was coming? A little bit from Pixar, I guess. I think they talked a little bit about a couple of their future projects that they hadn't announced yet. But like that stuff's so far out that it's all concept art. So but I'm certainly looking forward to all the various movies that I was already looking forward to.
Yeah, nothing much changes. It's
Yeah.
they were all.
Yeah.
I was excited about it anyway. So
Yeah. No, I think everybody was kind of half or more than half expecting like a Fantastic Four casting announcement.
Yeah.
And we didn't get that. But the other thing that we got in that was, we'll tell you more about it in 2 years, which means that movie is way out there.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You know, so of course we didn't get a casting announcement, because they are more than 2 years away from even talking about that movie. So of course we didn't get a casting announcement.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to have a moment where you're like, the only news we have is there's no news, and you won't have it for a while. You try to not say that on a stage. I think.
Well, actually, now that you mention that does remind me of one of the things that I was curious about, was because they didn't even mention Guardians 3, and I guess part of that was James Gunn, I guess, is busy editing, and so he wasn't there, and so they weren't going to make it part of the show.
Right.
But they also didn't even say James Gunn wanted to be here, but he can't be because he's making the movie, and we're all very excited about it.
Right.
The other movie that they didn't touch on at all was Blade.
Right.
Which I thought, again, like, even if you don't really have anything that you can say, I feel like, you know, a reference to the fact that yes, it is coming, like, as you're going through the calendar would not have been out of place. And so I did find it a little odd that they didn't even do that much.
Yeah, just bring Mahershala on Skype real quick and be like, "Oh, I'm excited to be here," and then like, bye. Like, you don't have to do much.
The whole thing felt like, a cavalcade instead of a parade. It was like Battle of the Network Stars. Here's a bunch of stars that we're going to bring on stage. I think the two things that stuck out for me were, it was really nice to see the Werewolves by Night trailer, mainly because I was like, are they going to actually do something actually scary and not tease us with Multiverse of Madness, and it isn't the horror movie they said it was going to be? Because this looks like a horror movie. It certainly looks it. And then seeing an extended trailer for Secret Invasion was nice, because it was like nice to see the arc of it being a paranoia thriller kind of feel. But nothing else that was announced on stage was, like you said, nothing we hadn't heard before. Other than, I will say, what was it? Captain America: New World Order sounds interesting.
As I mentioned on the last podcast when we talked about this, like, for me, at the very least, it was this sort of like you finally tied that knot, and you were like, okay, the leader is here. That little spoiler from a movie 13 years ago is like, okay, like, good, like I can rest well. Like it's like seeing that final piece, like in those weird Twitter videos or whatever, like, you know, they slice the thing just right. You're like, oh, okay, perfect. Like, that's exactly kind of how that felt.
Right.
Are we? And you mentioned Werewolves by Night, and I was thinking, it looks fun. It's got Harriet Samson Harris in it, who played BB Glazer on Frasier, and she was in Licorice Pizza, and like she's hamming it up real good. And I'm fine anytime you want to do that. Like, I'm fine with it. So
the tone was interesting though, because the trailer, I couldn't, like, there's enough sort of jump scare-ish stuff happening, but yet they're also choosing to make it like an old 30s Universal horror trailer. Like, is it going to be camp? Is it meant to be funny? Is it scary? Jury's still out, but it was enough there for me to go, all right, that's the most interesting thing I saw the whole time. And
because
so
it was Marvel, but it didn't look like Marvel.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's super fun. Yeah.
Are we reaching saturation when it comes to some of this stuff? This is a conversation we have a lot, and I feel like when I have to sit down at this Thanksgiving breakfast table of a D23, and I go, good God, like, really? Like, all of it? Thoughts? Do you feel like
I feel like the rabbit and pancakes in Wreck-It Ralph, like reluctantly pulling the pancakes into my mouth. I think that's a really good question. I don't think they care if you think it is reach saturation. It's going to happen. So to me, it's more like, I'm not going to be overwhelmed by it. I'm simply probably going to be a little choosier about what I watch and what I engage with. You know, there are shows that I got 2 episodes in, I'm like, nope, not for me. So, but there's ones that surprise me, like She-Hulk is making me laugh, and I hope Madison gets a spinoff. Like, she is pure chaos, 100% chaos, and I'm so
Madison Shorts. I could see Madison Shorts.
Shorts, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, of course it's going to be saturated. I think the big difference is, what's the new hero set that are the bad guys, the sort of Suicide Squad?
Thunderbolts.
Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
Thunderbolts, right. Okay. So to me, that's like, all right, this is a different take. It's not the rah-rah heroes banding together. That could be a whole new tone and a whole new feel for this phase. And maybe that'll engage me in a different way. And so seeing different product like so far, like She-Hulk and things, where I go, all right, that's a different take on what a Marvel thing can be. Hopefully you can keep that up and keep those plates spinning. Because even in the previous phases, that's what kept me interested, was not the heroes, was the moment we got to like Captain America Winter Soldier. And I went, oh, they're making a 1970s paranoia thriller.
Sure.
I'm in. It's no longer an origin story. It's no longer Save the World story. It's a very different kind of film. And I'm like, all right, keep that up and show me a different application of these characters and stories to style, and I might stay interested. If it's going to be more superhero origin stories and smash bang to save the planet, I'm going to lose interest really fast.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree with all of that. I mean, I think that's I think that seems to be what Marvel is very much doing intentionally to prevent that saturation feel, is to broaden what a Marvel story is. And so Marvel can be, you know, the lawyer comedy She-Hulk, and it can also be Werewolves by Night.
Yeah.
And it can still be, you know, the next Avengers movie. And it can be all of those things. And, you know, yeah, and maybe you're gonna like, you know, you're gonna like some of these more than others. And that's okay. And maybe one of these things, you know, actually succeeds in attracting a customer that isn't already there and is like, oh, hey, you know, I didn't care about superhero stuff, but this She-Hulk thing is hilarious. Maybe I should check out more of this Marvel stuff. And I think that definitely helps keep the interest, because you're like, okay, no, all right, it's a new Marvel show, but it's not like the other Marvel show, so it's different enough that I can come to it with a feeling fresh, rather than like, oh, we've done this again.
When are we going to have our first Marvel Merchant Ivory film, right? or our first Marvel period costume drama. I mean,
I wouldn't say no.
I wouldn't say no. I'd be very interested.
Anytime they want to do more World War II stuff, I'm always for it. And you know, another way I've looked at this is like, you know, it's where the merchandise for Marvel stuff gets bought. It's like, you need something for the Walmart crowd, and you need something for the Hot Topic crowd, and you need something for, like, you know, the high end Macy's crowd, and like there are different groups. They're gonna buy different. I'm just trying to think like Bob, you know, and I think Scarlet Witch is gone, and they're, you know, Guardians are kind of ending, and you need that kind of like rough family. I think Thunderbolts might fill that void. I think I can see where they're trying to go, and you're right. I think some shifts might help. Let's talk about a film that is also a theme park, so we can kind of get in there. But Haunted Mansion is officially a movie that stars Jared Leto. Where do we stand on this thing? And why is it hitting anyone's buttons correctly, or is the tone already feeling off?
I mean, having not seen anything, I don't really know yet, but I'm cautiously optimistic. You know, I like all the people in that cast. They have all been in movies that I have liked.
Sure.
And you know, so yeah, let's do it. You know, it's not, you know, and we tried it once and it didn't work out. So maybe the second time is what we need to do.
I think I'm kind of more like, I hold a lot sacred about the mansion. I mean, I have had a blueprint of the mansion over my desk since high school. I have a tattoo based on the mansion. Like it is my origin story, creatively and professionally in a lot of ways. But I'm also like, we've heard so much about this. The Eddie Murphy film was neither here nor there. Guillermo del Toro probably would have done something great, but that didn't happen. So I'm like, all right, Justin Simeon's a good filmmaker. But I did perk up when I found out that hang on, I'm blanking. Who came out on stage with him?
Jamie Lee Curtis?
Jamie Lee Curtis, excuse me. I had a 52-year-old moment there. Sorry. Jamie Lee Curtis. Let's back up. You can edit that out. So I really
probably not. I'm not gonna do it.
Probably not. Crap.
This is one of those raw ones.
I'm dumb. Folks, I'm old. Just let it ride. Don't at me, please. Jamie Lee Curtis is awesome. And so the minute I saw that she was involved, and that I guess she's going to be Leota,
Mhm.
is the current poop. I think that's great, and she's awesome. And if Leota has a bigger role than she did in the previous one, then maybe that'll be awesome. But again, jury's still out, so we know exactly what kind of movie they're making. I don't really know. I like what you said online, Nathan. The only reason that Magic Kingdom is getting a Hatbox Ghost is because it's being paid for by the production, because he's a character in the film.
Right.
And you are 1,000% correct about that. There's no way
No.
that was happening without the movie.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
We at this point, being an Imagineer is waiting to hear what the marketing of a movie will give you, it seems.
Yeah.
And that leads us into a larger discussion about all sorts of stuff. I guess we'll just kind of go by park. You brought up Hatbox Ghost, so let's go with Magic Kingdom. We got Happily Ever After returning. Tron Coaster is opening in spring. I don't know why anyone thought it was going to open in the end of this year, but I was hoping February. But here we are. And then
but you have to realize though that Memorial Day weekend is summer in Disney parlance, which means that spring could be February. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very valid. That's very valid. Their schedule's a little different. Any thoughts on any of that? Are we excited about Happily Ever After coming back? Is it a shock?
Did we get any real confirmation? Because like Josh started to like hedge a little bit. Are we actually getting like the actual Happily Ever After complete show, or are we getting a new show with the same song? Or
I think that's what we're.
else?
I think we're getting the 100th anniversary variation of Happily Ever After is what I'm gathering, because everybody else is getting a new show,
right?
So
exactly. Okay.
I would assume that's the case.
Well,
You get a new show, and you get a new show, and you get a new show.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone, clearly everybody seemed to like Happily Ever After. They were all very disappointed when it went away and got replaced by something they didn't like as much.
Yeah.
So one assumes that this, the 100th anniversary version of Happily Ever After will at worst be like the third iteration of Journey into Imagination. Maybe it isn't as good as the first version I loved, but at least it's better than the second one they gave me.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be the worst case scenario. And so, yeah, sure. I mean, like Happily Ever After is great. Like, I love it. It's a fantastic show. So I'm absolutely glad that it's coming back in whatever iteration it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much of an opinion on it because I actually haven't seen it. I'm such a West Coast snob. But
you are a West Coast snob.
I'm a Disneyland Forever and Wishes fan. I've never seen Happily Ever After, so maybe I got to go see it before it closes. I guess.
Well, you're gonna Well, wait until Enchantment is done, and then you can come down here, because don't waste your time. Okay. Here's the. I don't know if this is. I feel like Dirk. I've asked you this as a journalist. I don't know how you word this in an article. It's not a rumor, and it's not news. It is somehow a bunch of people, I feel like, live pitching stuff to Josh tomorrow like it's an episode of Shark Tank.
That was so weird.
Yeah,
that whole segment was so weird.
To be fair,
to
be fair, I would watch Imagineering Shark Tank. To be fair,
as would I. Disney Plus, please. Coco, Encanto, and Villains are coming to the area behind. The way I sort of worded it is, I think the way it would kind of go is like kind of finish off the loop, and Villains would connect to Haunted Mansion, is my guess, is how they would plan it. Which is nice, but it's not really. What is this? What is this?
Well, the answer to your question there is that there's a reason that I've only really talked about this part of the presentation on Twitter, and I haven't written much about it. And the answer is I don't know how. Yeah. It's because it's totally weird. I don't know what that was. It felt like it felt like on the one hand, it was like, oh, hey, we're in a room with all of our super fans, and so maybe this is something that they would find interesting. I did. I thought, like, okay, like seeing stuff in this early phase was like interesting from a sort of academic perspective. But yeah, like it honestly felt like there was probably somebody with some sort of a meter off stage checking to see, like, okay, when they said Villains Land, how loud did the crowd get?
Yeah,
when they said Moana, the applause, how loud did the crowd get? Because we're not sure what we're going to do, so let's see what the fans think, and then maybe that'll help us figure it out.
Weird weather ballooning. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, just putting on my professional hat for a minute, looking
Sure.
at that artwork and hearing those announcements, they have probably done full attraction concepts, not no
Sure.
budgets, no nothing. They've probably done multiple concepts for each one of those brands, and are still just sort of seeing what sticks with the finance people and with capital. Because remember, they're still not going to spend any capital on these parks for a while. Like that's just not going to happen. Anything that was under construction was being built. But that's the biggest reason that announcement was the way it was. Is there probably is work, substantial work done on those brands and those attractions that they're never going to talk about because none of it has been slotted for any particular pile of money yet, and won't be for quite a while. So it's like, sure, Blue Sky. Okay, tell us all about Blue Sky, but we know where that goes because it often goes nowhere.
Well, and you sort of wonder that, like, if you were to, the moment we know that there actually is going to be like a Coco or an Encanto land, that's almost a guarantee that there's going to be a sequel. Like it feels like they push these things out and they sort of are waiting to see. I think they had decided both these movies as franchises are sticking, right? In the same way that they brought out that walk along kind of Human Lightyear, and they were like, hey, well, maybe, and then everyone was like, no. And they're like, all right, forget it. We never made the movie. All the tomorrow, you could hear the Tomorrowland plans like going into the trash.
Yeah, trash can sound on when you trash things at a computer.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's act like this is a thing. Let's act like these are three lands that have a potential of occurring. Which of these three are you most excited about? Dirk, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think the villains land in Magic Kingdom, I think definitely has a lot of potential just because that's a much broader sort of canvas than, because with that, you're talking potentially about characters for multiple movies, not just Coco or Encanto. Certainly I would, I would love to see some sort of a, Encanto house attraction using, Mystic Manor or some sort of
course,
ride structure. Like that sounds awesome. Like, let's do that. Let's do that now, please. But I think, I think the Villains Land is definitely also very exciting. But yeah, no, I mean, well, going back just half a step, I just wanted to say, because the problem with all this, because they are so early, is, we are sort of speaking theoretically of if these things happen. Well, some of them may happen and some of them may not at all. And when that is and in 4 years, when they officially confirm that Villains Land is happening, but Coco is not, or whatever, they'll never speak of Coco. They'll just never talk about it again.
Yeah.
It's going to be like people who wanted that are going to be like, hey, what happened to that thing that you said was going to happen?
I think from a park planning and audience perspective, Villains is the most likely.
Sure.
And the only reason for that I say that is that, the idea of a villain's park or a villain's island or a villain's land or whatever goes back to the 90s, to the Disney decade. And back then it was a direct response to IOA and Busch Gardens. It was like, how do we put in a bunch of coasters and thrill rides so that teenagers and young adults don't look at the Magic Kingdom as the kids park, which is why Tron went in, frankly, right next to its very similar counterpart, Space Mountain. That park has an audience problem when you look at the thrill rides in the other parks now. And so to me, the villains from a marketing perspective are not the same audience when you start talking about what those attraction experiences that center around villainy can be, because they center right on thrill rides. So for me, it's the more likely to happen because that's what that park needs now. It doesn't necessarily need more kid stuff or family stuff.
I mean, it would. Speaking of Hot Topic, it's for the Hot Topic crowd. Like it's 100%. It's those who paid for, the Halloween events and kind of do all that stuff. And I agree. I think it's certainly got a better shot simply because it doesn't have to hope that one concept, one intellectual property, one story is going to hold ground inside of a culture. I think what's interesting is the other two, though, have like really been grabbed on by the cultures they represent.
Yes.
And so you have an opportunity for those people to join. Well, and what was so interesting, and something I believe Sarah brought up in her last episode, which was, it seems like Coco would go to the West Coast because it's closer to that demographic than over here. But and it might. We don't.
Yes.
God, they're coming up with these ideas. It doesn't mean that they all have to end up in the Magic Kingdom, even though that's where they said they were going to come up.
They're redoing Tarzan's Treehouse right now and haven't said what it is. So
yeah,
you know, that's my money is on Encanto. But I think that the broader cultural, that's a really good point. The broader cultural sense is that even though it's not a direct match to an audience in Florida, they do have a very large South American audience.
They do.
That larger than the West Coast. So which even Coco would certainly sort of lean that direction, even if it doesn't, you know, map directly. Of the two, personally, I think I want to ride on the back of that tiger flying thing from Coco so bad. Like just visiting the land of the dead to me is such a great dark ride of some sort.
It's Flight of Passage. That's what they were doing.
It's Flight of Passage. It's going to be Flight of Passage. Yeah. But again, the cue for that and the stepping into that world physically before you do some sort of, you know, flying adventure. But I'm 50-50 for both of those. I think they're both great. I'm with you, Stephen. I think the Mystic Manor idea for Encanto just writes itself. Like that's a no-brainer and such a good ride and such a great ride system that it would fit really well. But my money would be on Villains first.
Any thoughts more about Magic Kingdom before we move on? No, we're exhausted. All right, we're gonna go on to Epcot. I get it. There's a lot of news. Harmonious is getting replaced for the 100th because they need something for the 100th. Wink, wink.
Wink.
Dave, did you ever get to see Harmonious? You were down here a bit.
I never did. I know.
Don't worry. I don't think they're going to get rid of
I've watched it on video. That was all I needed.
Yeah, those paperweights aren't going anywhere either way. So
well, that's the thing, right? I mean, it's like, okay, like people are, you know, like, I mean, I've seen Harmonious. I thought it was a pretty great show overall. Not everybody is super thrilled about it, but most of the reason that for the people who aren't super thrilled about it, the thing they're not super thrilled about are, you know, the barges.
Yeah, 100%.
And the barges aren't going anywhere. They are going to be part of whatever replaces Harmonious. So, like, if you know, don't get too excited if that's what you're excited about, because that part's not going to change.
Yeah. Can I make one request for the Imagineers out there listening to this? Can I make one? Please center that show on the center line of the park. That center barge bugs the crap out of me. That it's like 10 feet off. Like. That park is an axial design. Like, oh, it drives me nuts. Anyway, minor point.
But boy, is it a big, like, you would get 10 points from me of positivity just if you fix that little thing.
Just that. Yeah.
Okay. Journey, is it of water or into water?
Journey of water.
Of water. Journey of Water and that whole center area will be ready for the 40th. No, wait, I'm sorry. It's going to be ready by 2024. Why is this taking so long? Do we know?
Who knows? I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, first of all, let me just say something really blunt and from an industry perspective. Walkthroughs don't work. Walkthroughs never work. It's why the Haunted Mansion was turned into a ride. At the scale that Disney operates, walkthroughs are terrible because they bottleneck and yada yada yada. Having said that, I love anytime environmental activation happens in a park, and that park has been devoid of that for a very, very, very long time. So if anything, just to have this oasis of loveliness to walk through, regardless of what the story or educational content is, I think is a plus for that park. So I'm just worried that when it opens, it will have lines and queues for something that is supposed to be, you know, casual stroll through thing. That's not going to be like that for the first 2 years, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe they figure something out, but I don't know. Maybe they are pulsing people. Maybe it's more of a pulsed experience than I'm giving it credit for. But even then, that's why walkthroughs don't work at scale, at the scale of Walt Disney World.
Dirk, you wrote an article, I believe it came out today, maybe yesterday, about the things that were sort of missing from the announcements. And I'm not sure you've talked about Epcot a little bit in that. But did you mention at all the 40th and in the lack of discussion of the 40th?
I did not. That was I probably should have now that you mention it, but I did not. I did not bring that up specifically. But yeah, no, that was weird because like it looked like that was where they were going to start the presentation. Like the first thing, almost the first thing out of Tomorrow's mouth, talking about all the celebrations was the 40th, and then it was like, I mentioned that it's happening, and now I'm moving on to something else. And that was definitely strange. Yeah, it's I mean, and yeah, it's going to be weird to have like the 40th celebration starting in 2023 when like the park isn't even fully open yet. I mean,
Mhm. I
hopefully
mean,
they
it
can.
starts. Yeah, I mean, it's like October, right? It's
Yeah,
down. It's
yeah. I
it's
mean,
almost here,
it's
and
yeah,
there's no
it's
sign that it's going to matter.
right,
Yeah.
which is strange. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love Epcot, so I'm definitely looking forward to those walls going away and
Mm.
that park being sort of complete again. And yeah, I mean, and maybe they're still like they've decided that they're just going to go straight from the 50th of Walt Disney World into the 100th of Disney, and we're just not going to worry too much about Epcot's 40th. And the Epcot purists, and I've now heard the voice of thousands of Epcot purists screaming in the darkness.
Yeah. I mean, there'll be merch. They'll always have
Oh,
anniversary.
There's always going to be
Of
merch.
course,
There's
there'll
always money to
be
be
merch.
made, but
Yeah.
yeah. Speaking of one of those things that definitely should have shown up for the 40th, and something I thought might have shown up for the 35th when I first moved here, is there's going to be a Figment meet and greet that is back after. We don't know the type. We don't know if it's tiny Figment or big Figment, or there's been a lot of iterations of Figment over the years.
It's just popcorn bucket Figment with a moving mouth. is
Yeah,
all
yeah,
it
yeah.
is.
But apparently that technology takes a long time to transform a
Well-
popcorn bucket because it's not coming for a couple years.
But is it Dreamfinder or is it Figment on his own?
Sound like
Is
just
it-
Figment.
Yeah.
I think we're pretending the Dreamfinder doesn't exist, right? We're still
And
pretending like
Mhm.
he's been retconned out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a little bit. Thoughts on that? Is it odd that Figment isn't coming sooner? Is it weird that is it weird to even announce it as a thing this early?
well, I mean, I think it definitely, well, it's not weird because apparently that's what Disney just does now. Is they talk about things way earlier than they probably should have. Honestly, it's like, I think you guys, announced Splash Mountain about 18 months earlier than you probably should have. So that part is not weird, but I do think that maybe it was a strange thing. Especially for something as overall minor as what's just going to be a meet and greet. Like,
Yeah.
like my guess is it will probably be some really cool Imagineering animatronic, like the little Groot thing that they've shown walking around. Like, it might be something that technologically is quite impressive. And so when it does eventually get here, it could very well be totally awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But even if
And
it is,
cost more money to make than the Figment ride that
right,
currently sits there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even if that's the case, the fact that you announced it as a meet and greet 2 years early without any of those sorts of details.
Right.
If you'd had a prototype, you could have shown me a 5-second video of a little animatronic Figment walking around and said, that's why it's going to take 2 years, because this thing is going to be amazing. Like that would have at least explained why you're telling me this now.
Right.
And so I don't know.
It's going to be a puppet. I mean, come on, let's lower expectations now.
I think it's going to be a walker. I think it's going to be a costume. I think it's going to be
a full. Oh, that's
they did
creepy.
one. They did one.
Oh, the original. So maybe they're just bringing that one back refined.
Right. They're going to forget about this announcement, and then in 2 weeks before, they're going to go, "Oh, we got to dust that thing off."
I must have blocked that from my brain. The only one I remember is the puppet one with Dreamfinder, where he's holding him in his arm. Like that's the only one I remember.
Big Figment.
Big Fig
was certainly. I mean, we've talked about this in previous episodes. Like thick Figment is a big deal. So having a big Figment is important to people. Here, I'll put it in our chat. That way you can see it, Dave. Yeah. So we'll see about that. Let's just talk about. We'll kind of skip the location-based stuff for a second and just talk about meet and greets in general terms. You bring on the grand, amazing people that you have. You bring on a Jon Favreau. You bring on a Kevin Feige for the theme parks panel, and you use them to announce meet and greets. It all seems like real small potatoes. We're excited about these things, but I don't know. Is it a strange? Well, I mean, would the Disney of the past been like here's a meet and greet. Like, be excited because we have nothing to
No.
show for it.
Oh, certainly not.
Yeah.
No.
Are we excited about any of these meet and greets though?
I mean, when they and there's certain meet and greets that have moved the needle forward, whether or not, I don't even remember if they announced them, but like the Magic Mickey at City Hall is awesome. And when, I don't even know if it still runs, but it was really great when it was there. The BB-8 one where he was sitting on a little pedestal, can move around. Like, there are moments that they've come up with, hey, how do we do a meet and greet, and sort of move the needle forward in terms of experience. But I don't recall any of those having giant announcements. But that's again, that's D23. They need content to fill that thing. Whether or not they don't care what scale they're announcing. I'm surprised we didn't get churro announcements and popcorn bucket announcements, because that's why not? Why wouldn't
Theoretically, it is the products panel.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
Well, and I will say in defense of the panel that just happened, at least we didn't get 20 minutes dedicated to Target. It was technically the products panel, but they did not focus on products unless they were talking about merch you can buy in the parks, which I will at least say thank you to everybody involved for making that decision. In another world, we would not have gotten D23 announcements for these things. Having said that, they're cool, and I think they're a cut above. I mean, that Hulk, based on the pictures I saw on the scale of Hulk standing next to Feige and Tomorrow, that's a pretty impressive looking thing.
Cool.
Very much. My only disappointment is that apparently they're going to limit. It's not going to be around forever. So and it's going to be showing up in 2 weeks or something, and I probably will never actually see it in person. And that's gonna make me sad. But it's a cool thing, and I do think, Avengers Campus and Galaxy's Edge specifically are a little bit different in the way that they handle characters. It's not even really a meet and greet. In the traditional sense of you're going to stand in line to get a photo. You can do that in some places, but it's about having these characters just sort of walking around and being active within the space as you're walking around. And I do think that that's kind of cool. I do like, wandering through Avengers Campus and just walking by Loki and Black Widow and whoever. And so that stuff I think is cool. And so being able to walk by Mandalorian and see Grogu there is that's going to be cool whenever that happens for me the first time. Yeah. It's not, I'm not going to rush out to the park to see it. It's not going to sell tickets, but it'll enhance the experience for the people when they're there.
Yeah.
Is it odd that Disney Plus only has enough money to send these things to the West Coast? Yeah. Is my only question. I as a Floridian, all these announcements, I'm like, that's great. And poor Hollywood Studios, not mentioned. They were like, no, we took you on a date. We took you on a big date. We went to Niagara Falls. And spent the weekend. You're on. I gotta go concentrate on other girlfriends for a while because, man, Studios got nothing.
Studios. I think. The Studios has a multi-million-dollar problem as it pertains to the future of Galaxy's Edge, which is the Galactic Star Cruiser.
Yeah.
They can't. The fact is, for the storytelling aspect of the whole thing, you can't, if you start messing with the timeline of Galaxy's Edge, it's going to mess with the Star Cruiser folks' experience. Sure. And you don't want to do that because they're the ones paying way more money than the people who just bought a ticket to get into Hollywood Studios.
Yeah.
So I don't foresee them getting this kind of cool stuff, for quite some time, if ever.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll wait for 5 years until Star Cruisers finally shut up and no more. But that's my prediction anyway.
or they relaunch it and create a whole new story that allows them to do more with it.
Something. Who knows? But let's keep moving. There's still so much to talk about, and I don't want to hold everyone forever. We're gonna hit the West Coast, we'll hit the West Coast. I just want everyone's initial thoughts on the new nighttime song "Wondrous Journey" and why it sounds like it's from an Old Navy commercial from 2008.
I have to say I didn't hear it.
Oh, you'll love it.
Yeah,
you'll love it.
Is it a new nighttime show or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's
their
the
new.
it's the theme of the new of the basically the 100th anniversary nighttime at Disneyland.
Okay.
I heard it and I don't remember it at all.
Yeah. It's
It's
not. It's not got a melody at all.
yeah,
Oof.
I mean, like, it's one of the, maybe in the context of the full show, it'll work. But it does certainly, I don't think, stands alone as a song the way something like Happily Ever After clearly has for people. I don't, this one doesn't, and, at the same time, maybe it'll work the other way. Like maybe once I've seen the show and if the show works, then I'll be able to listen to the song by itself and it'll have more meaning. But yeah, just getting it, on the stage out without any of that context just did not do anything for me.
I do not understand for the life of me why they're not just bringing back Magic Happens.
Oh, they are.
Oh, they
Are
are.
they?
Yeah,
Yes.
they are. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was a
did
quick
announce
announcement, but yeah.
that was a great parade. So
Well,
that
and
was-
you saw it in the 2 weeks it was around.
yeah, right. I did, and I was like, this is one of the best parades I've seen in that
Yeah,
park. And
no, it's coming back.
It was
Yeah,
fantastic.
no, I had a chance. I did a phone interview with Jordan Peterson. No, not that one. Who was the show director for it. I did a phone interview with him a couple weeks or a month before the show debuted, and he got me all excited. And then I was not able to get down there in the 2 weeks it ran, so I still have not seen it.
Yeah.
Well, I will go ahead and I'll go seek out that new song and let you know in the next recording how much I hate it.
Yeah, it's right up your alley. Put on your flannel and get yourself a nice home brewed cider, and you'll fit right in with that song. Okay. We have finally an announcement of the what they're calling a multiverse attraction for. I guess this is the e-ticket, I would assume, for Avengers Campus. And it is replacing what we knew before as the kind of the Quinjet attraction. And this seems to be King Thanos, the Thanos that won, battling everybody from all over the multiverse. A concept I like in the sense that we have all these characters running around anyways, out of canon sync. So multiverse, it makes sense to sort of allow that to happen. But they say it's coming soon. Why do you guys think they're saying it's coming soon?
Because they have a very inflated definition of what soon means.
That's true as well, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, it's.
I look at that artwork, the two pieces of artwork, the old one that was the sort of jetpack Quinjet thing, and now, and my just again looking at the broader world of their attraction development, there is no way they are not somehow reusing Flight of Passage somewhere else in the world, because they're not building Pandora in California, probably never nowhere else ever. And that Flight of Passage hardware is not only a big piece of engineering and very expensive, but very successful. Everybody likes to throw, oh, it's just like Soarin', but it's not. It's got it has really incredible dynamics.
Turn around when you're on it, and then you tell me it's Soarin'.
It's a death machine. I turned around and that thing will kill you.
Yeah, don't worry about falling forward.
No.
Don't go backwards.
Don't go backwards, right? If fall forwards, you have a chance at surviving. But it's like it's such a different ride experience when it comes to simulation. It's a bigger screen and it's got this heave motion and negative G's. So there's a lot going for it. I just can't believe that they're not going to try to find a way to reuse it. So when I saw that first artwork years ago, my assumption was, oh, they're doing the Quinjet backpack, like jetpack thing, but on that motion platform.
Yeah, you're getting on the Quinjet, and then there's a problem, and so they seat
and
you
they
down.
drop you out, right?
Yeah, and then the thing's open, and then your individual car is flying around, even though everyone's seeing the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So that was my assumption, right? So then the new one comes out, and it looks like a regular old ride vehicle, and everybody's saying, "Oh, it's just Dark Ride Now," or it's just Simpsons or Back to the Future," and I'm like, well. It could remember concept art is concept art. That ride vehicle means shit.
If there's one thing we learned this D23, concept art is just concept art. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Don't overthink it. They're just going to show you everything.
But again, that configuration of the backpack has its own issues in terms of accessibility. Sure. So even I was skeptical of it when I saw it. I'm like, how are you going to do what's the version of that works for every audience member of every size and ability? And even Flight of Passage works fine with that, right? So it could just be that they're putting individual ride vehicles on the same motion platform envelope, the same kind of motion that's on Flight of Passage, and the same in a giant configuration like Flight of Passage. But then I also thought, well, they did that with Rise. Rise is basically the end of Rise is the same kind of mechanism that Flight of Passage does in terms of that heave motion and dropping. So it could be that maybe it starts as a dark ride and then it locks into place and finishes like Flight of Passage. Just trying to dissect the concept art, trying to dissect the last 10 years of attraction engineering and what they could put in California that they don't already have. That's where my brain went for all of that.
Dirk, thoughts?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it would seem to me that the ride, whatever ride we end up getting, is probably essentially the same ride we were going to get before. It's just the story that's changed.
Right.
I think, what little we knew of that ride, a fair amount of it was supposed to take place in Wakanda. So I have a sneaking suspicion that the most significant impact to the original ride concept was not a pandemic, it was Chadwick Boseman. And they may have decided, because I'm sure, because I'm not sure you can put, it's like, if you're going to do Black Panther and you got to have him, or just don't even bother.
Right.
And so I have a feeling that may be what changed that. And my guess is now they probably are moving forward with whatever they were going to do anyway. We just need to change the story. And I'm just glad that it's happening. Like, because I like Avengers Campus overall. It's a cool place to hang out, but it needs a big e-ticket, and that's really gonna bring that whole land to life.
The nice thing I think about multiversing it too is, in theory, if you want to add new characters that you're adding into the MCU, you can do it.
Right. You can Star Tours it.
Yeah.
The future in film in like film and video based attractions is generative content, right? Like if you think that they're done with interactive generative content after Millennium Falcon, you're sorely mistaken. That is some very powerful stuff. So if I can all of a sudden have Flight of Passage have 5 or 6 different rides, or if I can have different characters show up, so it's Adventures Continue on steroids. It doesn't have to be just scenes; it can be characters and things that change within the frame. Yeah. So I would not put that past them. The hurdle for that has always been resolution and speed and size. But nowadays with stitched projection, what is Flight of Passage? Something like 28 projectors. Yeah, you could. It really, we're at that point where the tipping point where generative stuff at film quality is finally there, and I have a feeling you're going to see a lot of that in future attractions.
I will have to say I was surprised that there was an announcement of a Avatar Way of Water themed variation of Flight of Passage that the marketing budget would have paid for. It seems like, because they should have opened that with multiple sequences, and we're still waiting for another one. So
it could be, it could really be easy. Keep the same ride film, same your Flight of Passage, and avoiding the Lanopteryx and all of that stuff. But at the end, instead of perching on the end and watching the sunset, you dive into the water and there's a tag at the end.
Yeah, something.
I think that would be dynamite. But
yeah, who knows? I feel like we would have known at this point, but who knows? Yeah. Let's end up. We'll kind of have one more thing, and then if there's anything that sort of threads you want to hit, we can do it. Chaz Bayou Adventure for both Magic Kingdom and Disneyland. We're looking at late 2024. Not a lot of explanation. Again, concept art, sort of, they went, oh, that's expensive, let's just put a water tower, and which is fine, and it's fine, whatever. The two things that they were excited about, I feel like, at this D23 were meet and greets and lighting packages. Boy, they wanted to talk about lighting packages.
They wanted to talk about mist and lighting. Like, okay, maybe they're doing something fun, because you think of, like, it's easy to say, oh, it's just mist and lighting, but think of what they do in World of Color with those little the animated laser blobs that go through the air. That's kind of, first time I saw that, I was like, wait, what am I looking at? That's pretty cool. Maybe they're doing something like that inside. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah. Thoughts, Dirk? Is this I feel like this was brought up in the last podcast that late 2024 seems like a pretty quick turnaround.
Well, it is, assuming that you close your existing ride fairly soon. Can we move that along, please? I'm checking my watch. Let's get that done. I guess it ultimately depends on on what all they're going to do in there once it comes time to start doing it. And it sounds like they're not going to skimp on the animatronics, and they are gonna really kind of go for it. But yeah, like, I mean, the thing about Splash Mountain is that just the place is huge.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much. Like, if you are gonna essentially pull out all the old animatronics and put in a bunch of new ones, that's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
And so if that is what they're doing, and I mean, my guess is we probably won't have as many animatronics in the new version as we had in the old. They'll use other cool technology things to take up some of that space with other cool stuff, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that on spec. But yeah, no, I mean, I think, I didn't really expect them to announce a Splash Mountain closure date at the panel. That's not how they do closures. They do closures as quietly as they can. And they know that this one is not going to be quiet when they say it, but they're still going to try to be as nonchalant, and they're going to bury it in the seventh paragraph of a Disney blog post. But I mean, hopefully that closure will happen soon, and we can get started. I'm excited for the new ride. I am missing the one thing I do miss, based on the model that they were showing off, was in that original concept art they had like Mama Odie's tree at the top of the and like that. I am bummed that is not there, because that would look awesome. And maybe they can find some extra money in the budget to throw it in there before it's done.
I'm super excited for it. It's my favorite. It's one of my probably top 3 or 4 of the modern era from Disney. I love that film so much. And so I was very excited to hear them change it. Like the concept art there, that big change with the tree. My thought is, again, putting on my professional hat, is when you get to budgeting and you realize how much it's going to cost, let's do it inside where we have more control over her and she's a real character and not just a throwaway on the roof. So I have a feeling we'll encounter her, Mama Odie, in the tree, but it'll be in the context of the ride and not as an outdoor scenic. The thing that made me laugh about all the we're not going to get into all the negative racist idiots, but the one thing people complaining about, that it's there are no mountains in the bayou, and I was like, the original takes place in a bayou, you idiot. Like there's no mountains in space either, by the way. And I did some Imagineers say something about like a salt dome, because there are
they showed, so they mentioned that there's a salt dome thing that it's based on, and then you go look at the salt dome and it's a hill. Like there's you don't have to explain it. It's fine.
No,
you're doing a Tiana ride. Just do it.
Right.
Yeah, I do appreciate the cultural kind of, I'm sure they do this with all sorts of stuff, but they kind of had this real Joe Rohde vibe about like we really went there and we really studied it and we like really understand the culture we're trying to represent, which is you don't have to do that. And I felt that was pretty nice. Here's the big question I keep asking people: are they going to sell farewell merch for Splash Mountain, or are they going to think that it's too big of a political gambit and just for the first time in I feel like 10 years close a ride without any way of making money off of that closure? Is it like, where do we think this is their devil's like bargain? Is they love money but they hate bad publicity? So
but they also don't sell a lot of merch from the ride to begin with. They don't sell the plush of those characters anymore, not that I've seen.
Well, no, they announced the closure and everybody bought everything up for eBay, and then they've never made any more. So
yeah, that to me says we might get a t-shirt or a pin out of it, but that's about it.
Yeah. They might do something small, something, like a t-shirt or a pin that says Splash Mountain, but obviously makes no other reference to anything that Splash Mountain might be connected to. And that will be the extent of it.
Agreed.
Someone's like, there's a Q in that image of Save the Splash Mountain. I can see it. I know what's going on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they will err on the side of not, I think. If they don't do something small like that, then they will actually do nothing. And it wouldn't, like they may, you may get the first Tiana's Bayou Adventure t-shirts in the store after Splash closes, like the I can't wait until it gets here t-shirt.
Oh yeah.
Is going to be the merch focus for that, rather than goodbye to Splash.
Yeah, looking forward. Anything else internationally, or anything else that kind of hit your attention about this D23 panel that you thought was intriguing, gentlemen?
Apparently not.
Gosh, we're both so blown away by it. Like I just go back to my first statement. Like I I I I I see why they do this thing, and I commend them for wanting to control their own messaging. But that literally lets all the air out for me of any sense of surprise or any expectation of surprise, because that's not what it's for. At least not in a way that we used to look forward to these things. I think it's been a while since we had a D23, and that's, I think, why this one had so much attention. But it's I don't criticize it. All that hard work on display is lovely to see. Good for the creators for getting out there in front of their work. I no complaints there. All that's awesome. It's just nothing that the things I was most surprised about, and the things that piqued my interest, were the tiniest little things, like the Mando costume and Hulk.
Well, and
that's cool.
For not being around for a while and having a lot of announcements, I still kind of feel like it was a big mirage for the fact that they have nothing to really compete against Epic Universe or really to celebrate the 100th. It seems like they maneuvered wrong 10 years ago, and now they're left kind of in the lurch, and this is why we're doing meet and greets with Kevin Feige announcements and stuff.
Well, I mean, I think they found themselves in an awkward position, in large part due to the pandemic and the closure and the way that delayed everything. So we found, we're in a position where I think part of the reason that we got here's where we're thinking of maybe doing stuff in Magic Kingdom, part of that is because had things gone as planned, Tron would be open and Splash Mountain would be done, and we would be ready for here's what's next at Magic Kingdom, this past weekend. We were due for that announcement, so people were expecting that announcement, even though they're still they're still stuck in the middle of stuff at Epcot and stuff at Magic Kingdom. They're not really there yet, but from the way the cycle usually works, we should be there. So people wanted announcements, even though it's wait, what do you mean? What do you mean you're ready for the next new thing at Magic Kingdom? Tron isn't even open yet. That's the next new thing at Magic Kingdom. It's not even here. Give us a few months. Give us a few months, let it open, enjoy the new ride for a while, and then you can start asking for the next thing, please. But people, so the cycles are off as far as when the announcements were supposed to come and when the rides were supposed to open, and they're still trying to navigate how to fix all that and get back on track. And I think we're still, clearly we are still stuck somewhere in there, and it's probably going to be another couple of years before we really figure out how to get back on track.
Well, and again, this all goes back to that capital expenditure equation, right? It's easy to point to Epic and go, well, Universal's doing that. Yeah, that was underway, and the money was already approved, and it was already set aside. So it had a pause. It did not have a stop. And everything that had that level of investment and momentum is already happening, like Tron and Tiana and things. This all goes back to that Band-Aid that they ripped off with the layoffs and moving to Florida. That is going to set back anything new for the Florida and California audiences for quite a while. The capital money is just not going to be spent for, my prediction is, another 3 years. Is that we won't start seeing, beyond the announcements they've made now, you won't see any big new stuff for another 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. I will say, though, congrats to the international parks for having Elsas with faces. We appreciate that. Certainly not jealous about any of that. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for chatting with me about this stuff. I hope to never talk about D23 to 2022 ever again.
No, we're done. Put it to bed. Put it to bed.
Yeah. If I do, it's going to be on a therapist's couch.
It's going to be D86.
Yeah. So with that wonderfulness, of course, Rat Castle is produced by yours truly, Nathan Hartman. And of course, if you liked this episode, we did a 3-day D23. You can look back and see those episodes. You can send us questions that you have about D23, all sorts of stuff. And all that is at bit.ly/Rat Castle. Dirk, where can people find your work?
You can find my work in the theme park section of cinemablend.com. You can find me being snarky on Twitter at CHILDE_DIRK. And that's, I think I have an Instagram, but I almost never use it. So I have
Don't
a
worry,
TikTok.
no one wants to go on Instagram anymore anyway, so it's fine.
Find me, read my stuff at Cinema Blend. If you want to chat, we can do it on Twitter, and we'll leave it at that.
Well, thanks for joining us, Dirk. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, grab your belongings and exit to the left.
Will you stop this foolishness?
What foolishness would you like to see?
Will you get out of here?